Here we are starting the recording. Welcome Wildking back to ScrubCast. Unfortunately, we did a somewhat episode yesterday. It was very rough, but it did fail too, like to record properly. The audio was audio problems, all that kind of good stuff. But we're back with Wild. Hi, Wild.
For
How you
round two.
Round two. How you doing, dude?
Pretty good. We've been playing a bit, so I'm in a good mood.
We're all warmed up. We've been playing some Overwatch 2, the beta. And so far I've been loving it. Now, we did go over a few things yesterday. I'm pretty sure if you guys were live on twitch.tv/sulek_, you would have heard a little bit of our conversation. But we are going to go over a lot of that stuff again and more. We're going to be talking for quite a while here until we feel like we've gone over everything rather than packing everything into a half an hour section, which is kind of how I've set things up already. So, that being said, Wild, what do you want to talk about? We can start out with Junker Queen. We can start out with what you've been playing. We can start out with whatever you want at this point. I know you obviously have things that you wanna talk about.
Yeah, I'd say let's start off with just Overwatch 2 in general. What we've been seeing, kinda the people we've been playing with, what seems to work, what seems not to, and we can go from there.
Okay, yeah, I'll just introduce what I've been doing, and we'll build context off of that. So, I've been playing a lot of tank, a lot of Junker Queen, obviously practicing a bunch of different, uh, well, compositions with Junker Queen, practicing a little bit against other, well, as other tanks against Junker Queens. We've seen people of all sorts of elos. We'll talk about that in a second because I still think I'll point out too there probably still is some form of skill-based matchmaking going on at the moment. And then we'll go into specific heroes and the things that we've been going on about. Blah blah blah. I'm playing on a Sigma 2, which I feel is very very strong right now in terms of controlling all the chaos. But my tank play is a little bit limited. Also, I'm focusing on those two heroes for the most part. Wild King, what have you been playing?
I'm full support all the way. Lots of Zenyatta, a bit of Mercy, bit of Baptiste, Lucio for touching point, but mostly been picking up that Zenyatta and that Mercy, really feeling out the changes and how they want to play and where you can go on the battlefield now because it's insane.
What's your go-to support then?
Go to, it depends who I'm playing with. If I'm just solo queued, I'm going Zenyatta. I can put out so much damage, so much healing, and just never die. So he's always an easy go-to pick for the solo queue, but when I've got that group I'm playing with, I'd really like to pull out that Mercy and just be able to play around my team and help them achieve what they want to in the fights.
Okay, well then let's focus on something we did a little bit later on in the conversation yesterday, but we'll actually start with this. You've been playing a lot of Zenyatta. A very small change and a very bit of a seems like a bit of a meme change has completely changed up his playstyle, or at least the way he feels like he should be played. We're still going to see from the Overwatch League how things turn out, and then of course from our potential favorite streamers and how they play. But how has Zenyatta been changed? What's the buff for one, and how do you think the buff changes Zenyatta's playstyle?
The only thing that they did to Zen was on his quick melee, his kick, it now does 45 more damage, so a total of, oh, that's math, I'm bad at that. Yeah, 45 more damage, I'm not even going to attempt it. And it knocks whoever you kick back about 2 meters.
Which is I think is probably the biggest thing.
It's massive, being able to push people away, especially when you're looking at, like, everyone loves a Reddit Lucio. Zenyatta just shuts him down. Junker Queen trying to get into that melee range just immediately shut down by Zen Kick. And even it really helps in those situations where you're getting dove by Genji's tracers being able to kick and shoot them in quick succession is a lot of burst damage that it makes him a tricky character to really get up close with.
Well, we always used to emphasize, and we probably still will in some cases, but we used to emphasize a lot here, like with Zenyatta, is playing in the back, being hidden, because Zenyatta doesn't have fall off with his shots, and we'd see a lot of lower elo Zenyatas be in the middle of the fight sometimes, and you'd be like, "Well, why are you there? Just step back, right? Like, don't no, there's no reason for you to be in the fight." But it seems like nowadays, and potentially, there obviously you don't want to stand in the middle of the fight as Zenyatta, but we will see higher elo Zenyatta players position themselves closer to the fight because they want to, let's say, boop a certain ultimate out of the way. They or they feel like they can tank and hold a certain corner with their kick. They become a completely different tool in the team as opposed to being this like sitting in the back semi sniper ish support. He's now his own DPS.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. With he likes to sit in the back and just spam down the choke points and hold an angle that you can just contest forever with his shots. But most of where I've been over the last week or two now has been right next to my tank, pushing with them as hard as we can. And he really, with that Discord, being able to be with your team, it's a lot more effective. And you can get a lot more damage out just by slow rolling them, almost. You don't have to rush in, you don't have to play for picks, you just slowly push them back step by step until you get a kill, and you just keep doing that.
So yeah, in Overwatch, we really like to emphasize using our entire kit during a fight. If you die and you haven't used a cooldown or you haven't used an ability in some way to give your team some value, well then we consider that a completely wasted fight. If you look at Zenyatta in the past, it was like, well, did you get a few right clicks off in the right place? Did you get your heal orb off here? Did you get your Discord orb off on the right character? But now, because your kit is such an important part, or sorry, well, because your kick, sorry, is such an important part and such a valuable tool, we're going to be asking ourselves a lot in these fights, could you have gone in and moved the enemy team or an enemy player from one position to another just with a kick to be able to protect somebody else or to be able to dislodge them or be able to stop them from shooting somebody? Uh, it's going to be a really, really interesting change, I think, especially in the higher elos to watch. We're gonna see a much more aggressive Zen playstyle overall. So I do believe that that's all the changes they did with Zen. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's all that they did to Zen.
And it still has a big impact on him. So in the future, we'll just keep an eye out. Definitely in the next few casts here, we'll talk a lot more about Zen. How actually, Bears in chat actually said something really, really interesting. Twitch.tv/Sulak _ just saying. He says high ground control with Zen is absolutely, well, he said high ground control with Zen, I'll add, is absolutely crazy. We had an instance where like a Genji was trying to jump us and we were up top as, I can't remember what I was playing. I was probably Junker Queen or something like that. But Bears kept the entire enemy team essentially off the high ground just by kicking them every single time they came up, whereas in the past they would just run up the side or take the elevator and we'd be dead almost instantly. So in those like very niche moments that do happen quite a bit in Overwatch, he's going to be an absolute game changer. Hopefully we see some crazy plays in Overwatch League too, where the best of the best show off their new boop skills. Moving on from that, of course, Mercy. What stands out to you with Mercy's changes?
Well, there's a couple things. One, when you hold down your space bar and you're just floating, that is a lot more aggressive now. So if you have momentum, that'll shut it down very quickly, which is good and bad, but can definitely be used to fake out snipers and have some fun around the battlefield. But the biggest change for Mercy being that we've dropped down to that 5v5 and you lose one of your escape routes. They gave it back to us with ease, having super jump be at the end of Guardian Angel. And this can be turned off. You can turn off the toggle on Guardian Angel and you no longer have to worry about it. But in general, it is very helpful having that quick escape. Allows you to be more aggressive in the fights, jump from person to person, and really it just lets you have a bigger role in the fight, being able to damage boost and heal and keep people alive where they probably shouldn't have been alive.
You brought up a really interesting point, and just thinking about the Zenyatta change, which of course increases the amount of CC in the game in general, it's really interesting that they added Mercy's new, what would you call it? Was it Angelic Descent or whatever it is? The new change to it where it slows those kind of things down if you don't want to be booped out of position, right?
Yeah.
They've seemed to add they've added a little bit of tankiness to Mercy, and we did talk a little bit yesterday. I was a little bit worried that they gave Mercy more passive play with the ability to super jump every single like time they jump in. But I think combined with the super jump, you are correct. It does seem like they have enabled a much more active Mercy playstyle where you have a lot more control over where you are specifically on the field. Uh, do you have any comments? We did talk about this yesterday, but I'd like to add it in here. Do you have any comments about people that say that okay, they're removing Mercy's skill by adding in an easy super jump like that, or do you just not care and think it is removing skill, but doesn't matter because it's more useful?
Definitely removing skill. There, as anyone who's played Overwatch knows, there are a ton of different techs for Mercy that this breaks. With the slower fall and with the super jump, it either just completely negates it where you don't need to super jump anymore and do the actual mechanical skill there. But at the same time, it's gonna help a lot of lower ranked players be able to contribute more to a fight. But in all reality, I've played Mercy up into Masters. If I kept going, I could probably keep climbing after that without ever super jumping. Never needed it. So, while those skills are nice, they're extremely situational. And having that 5v5 setting where the fights, as I'm sure you're aware, Sulak, are super fast.
Yes, we'll talk about that in a
Two,
moment.
2 seconds max. So having that quick escape as Mercy where you don't have to hit 3 different keys and be able to do all of that on your keyboard super fast, it really allows her to stay relevant in the support line where losing that one person is a bigger detriment than I think most people are going to realize for escape routes and the sort.
In the few times that I've played Mercy, I'm thinking back to it. I do feel that by the time that I've jumped in and super jumped, the fight should almost be over, right? I
Yeah.
did hear on one of SVB's podcasts where they had a bunch of Mercy mains together, and they were all talking about how super jump actually wasn't that useful. Some of them, they obviously know how to do. They obviously know how to super jump because they are grandmasters, top 500s. But they also said that in many of their games, it wasn't something that, as long as your team is positioning in a reasonable spot, you rarely will ever need it. So bringing it, especially to bringing it to lower elos, I think is a really good idea because having hidden mechanics is never that good, right? Like it doesn't feel good to have somebody on your team who can't execute something because they don't have that type of information.
Yeah, and it evens the playing field when we're looking at console to PC because some of these techs for Mercy are impossible on console. You just don't have enough inputs that you can put in at the same time and combo those together well enough that it's impossible, if not close to impossible. Whereas PC, I see Mercy super jumping in silver.
Yes, we do. We absolutely do. I like you're
Maybe the
obviously
only thing they do, but
you are enraging Mercy mains everywhere who play on console who are like, I can do it every time. But that's okay. We do know it is proven, unfortunately, that if you have a PC, a mouse and keyboard, generally the control is going to be much tighter. Um, Unless you're talking about like small, I guess movements forward and backwards, where we only have W, A, S, and D, but that rarely ever comes into play in a game. You can always compensate with mouse movement. Uh, there are definitely things that are significantly easier on PC that console players probably should be using, especially if we're combining them now, especially if we're seeing a lot more cross-play compatibility. Uh, there's been rumors of things like Overwatch Mobile too, which I'm all for. I think more people playing Overwatch is a great thing, but having that that ability, or at least the ability to for everybody to do the same things, allows like, well, again, it's the hidden mechanics thing that really gets to me, right? The only thing that bugged me about Mercy's super jump was the fact it was hidden, right? Like it was an unintended bug of the way that Mercy does her boost, her whatever it is. So I don't know. We'll see in the future how it turns out. Is there anything majorly weird with it right now? Obviously, this is not really a bug report or anything, but have you had any interesting experiences with the new Mercy super jump that you want to share?
yeah, I haven't been able to do it yet, and I've been trying to figure it out. But there is a glitch with it where you can just on repeat super jump. I'm talking not waiting for the cooldown, you just bounce up and down. And that makes Mercy impossible to hit. To actually line up that shot and get it, you are essentially tossing the dice and hoping for a good roll. So I'm hoping that that gets fixed in their updates, but other than that, I haven't noticed anything too weird with it. And just playing as I normally would, nothing outrageous has come of it. Other than just make sure when you're going for a res, you don't Guardian Angel the entire way.
I've definitely noticed as Junker Queen that Mercy doesn't feel that much different to play against. Like it's not frustrating. Obviously, if I was playing something like Widowmaker, I'd notice the weird little intricacies of Mercy's movement. But I think as a tank player and as a support player, an ex support player, it doesn't feel that punishing. So good job on the developers. We're moderately happy with that. We'll have to see where it goes though. All right. Are there any other changes for the supports that you've been playing that you really want to bring out? Any weird different play styles? Any secret buffs? There are a few DPS heroes that I know feel like they got secret buffs. We can go over that in a moment. But is there anything else that you wanna highlight here?
Yeah, the Baptiste.
Baptiste. Okay.
Baptiste got a buff to his self heal. And I think it's good. I think it keeps him relevant in the game with being down a tank. But the buff itself is on his self heal. The lower the health is of you or those around you as well, it heals faster. It's still the same amount, but it'll heal it up faster. So if you're in the middle of a team that's in lamp and everyone's critical and you press your self heal button, you immediately your whole team is back to full or half health.
Regenerative
Just
burst.
like that.
Yes. It's a
Yep.
it's a weird mechanic, but I kind of like it because before, uh, playing DPS, like of course this is kind of a screw you DPS ability. You could actually kind of burn your way through a regenerative burst, no problem. Not no problem. Obviously, it was a difficult thing to get through, but now it's almost impossible. If somebody's low and that's a well timed ability, it makes it more of like a skill shot, I guess.
Yeah, it definitely brings in a lot more of the awareness of the fight. And it's another ability that your enemy team DPS and tanks are going to be trying to bait out because it has so much power in the mid fight to sustain a team where, by all rights, they should be dead.
And it definitely allows you to save your immortality field for those moments where it's really needed, as opposed to being like, oh no, my teammate is low. What do I do? Well, now you have that instant something to do, as opposed to going, well, they'll be healed in a few seconds. I'll be okay. It's I like, well, as with everything, it's more of an aggressive change, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think for the support line, that's a good change. All of the supports feel a lot more aggressive. You want to be doing damage, you want to be in the fight. And I think going forward for Overwatch, it's really going to make the support role itself a lot more fun.
Like, I'm not super familiar with Valorant, but I know it somewhat applies, and this is going to be more of a Counter-Strike thing. And actually, it's more of like a general FPS thing. Most of the time when you're playing an FPS, you have like the same things as everybody else. And sometimes you'll get some armor, sometimes you'll get smoke grenades, sometimes you get flash grenades, but never at any point in time are you like the healer. Never when you're playing like, well, what's the Rainbow Six games, uh or what else is there? Oh my god, there's a whole bunch. Any shooter at all, it doesn't really matter. Battlefield, like the support, the healer is somebody that's always an active part of the fight. It is just as much your job to get kills and to take space as it is for you to kind of help your team to heal them up and to do whatever you like. It's not always just healing. Again, a flashbang is just enough support in many situations. It's not going to be super useful in Overwatch. Flashbangs would be moderately infuriating, would they?
Oh, that'd be horrible.
It would be terrible.
With everything else that's going on in any given fight, a flashbang would destroy the game.
So even smoke grenades are a little bit weird because the more stuff we have on screen in Overwatch, the less we get to see of a game that matters, like really matters what you're looking at. But the support needs to be there. We need to add that type of mechanic to Overwatch instead of just adding the MMO mechanic of, hey, let's sustain a fight for 4 hours against a boss as whatever. I know, obviously, it's a little bit of an exaggeration, but not even so much in many cases an exaggeration. We want fights to be quick and more like FPS fights in Overwatch, which just seems like they've actually done their job. Wild, I know for sure, we like just talking about supports in general, we've seen a lot more damage come out of the supports recently, haven't we?
Yes. Normally when I'm playing a game, just looking at the scoreboard at the end, I could tell you which team won and which team lost based on how much damage their supports did.
There's a few, we've had a few weird exceptions, but that seems like the majority of the games, isn't it?
Yeah. Just having a Zenyatta on the team. I've played a couple with Zenyatas that had maybe 1,000 damage, and then when I'm on Zenyatta, I can pull, I can keep up with DPS in our tank, if not exceed them in most games. And that's just another body putting damage onto the field that your team can clean up on.
Like that's really
And
sorry, just to say it's really important because even as a tank, like if I'm pressing tab most of the time, I'm not looking at like Zenyatta's healing done. I'm looking at the damage done. Even in many cases too, like Baptiste and heck, even Ana in some cases. If someone's gonna pick Ana, they better have some reasonable damage done. If not, I'm probably feeding his tank, but it's still something to be expected.
yeah, uh, most definitely. The only person I would expect to not see damage is on Mercy. But Mercy brings a lot more to the fight with her damage amplification that no other character can really match.
I'm even gonna argue too. Potentially, Mercy should have some damage done. I will make that case that if you have a Mercy on your team, if she got 0 damage done by the end of the game and you guys lose, that might be why. Uh, because it feels like especially with the Valk, right? In many situations, it can be worth it to pull it out and finish off a fight. I've had a few Mercies jump me so far where it seems almost impossible to deal with them in your face. So we'll have to see. But in general, overall, supports, if you play support, if you love support, we're going to be doing more damage. Of course, we're going to be looking back at things. There's going to be the reverse of you're not doing any healing. Well, if you're not doing enough healing in the first place, then then that's still going to be a problem. But overall, you should be looking for those skill shots, those sneaky boops, those sleeps, those anti-nades, those just everything. More damage in general. More damage is always more engages are always good. As for playing with the tanks, because of course I've been playing other tanks. Wild, have you noticed anything playing support with your tanks? Is there any big changes with Junker Queen, especially that have changed up the way you have to play?
Yeah, with all of the tanks, not just Junker Queen, but with all of the tank on the field becomes the most important character that everyone else picks around. Whatever your tank plays is what your team has to play around. You're not going to be running an Ana Baptiste with a Junker Queen because she doesn't need all of the heals that they can give. Yes, there's other abilities there, but you can get better utility out of your supports and out of your DPS if you're playing around the playstyle of said tank. Reinhardt's going to be very different from Junker Queen, different from Roadhog, different from Ball. So it really does make a difference of what your tank plays, and that's something to always consider going into a game, is who do I play and what is my team playing? How do I play around them?
I feel like composition with your tank is going to matter significantly more in this game, especially since you have one less player, meaning that the percentage of impact you have as your role goes up. So if your team is playing dive, so if you have a ball and you're playing Cassidy, then you're going to have a hard time because the ball is going to always be out of sync of your Cassidy. If you're also playing Ana in some maps, you're gonna have a really rough time with the ball because, or even Winston because, or any dive form at the moment. What is it? It's Casio, right? That's the name of the place, or I can't remember. Correct me. Wild help.
Castile.
Castile, yeah, the big Coliseum one. Um, that one, if you're playing anything offset, like let's say you play like Baptiste and dive too, it becomes really, really difficult to keep up with it. I play a little bit of Winston, trying it out in some spaces, and unless my team is actually committed to what I'm doing, it feels like I'm playing uphill. Now, that being said, when I'm playing Junker Queen, everybody seems to slow down a little bit. But in another way, too, the fights are a little bit faster. Have you noticed, or what are the big combos that you're seeing with Junker Queen so far? What are you watching for, Wild? What heroes especially work really well so far with Junker Queen, and what heroes do you not want to play with? What combos do you not want to try and do?
I've seen a lot of good stuff with Junker Queen's Ashe is a good combo there. Having that double tick damage from both of them on any target
That's huge.
is very strong. Genji, Tracer, and Sombra do a really good job there. But also the snipers, Sojourn, Hanzo, Soldier, Widow. When you're running that Junker Queen or a Junker Queen matchup, the snipers do a lot of work because they don't have a shield. There's no real mitigation of damage. There's just added heals to the field at that point. So having that one shot potential with those heroes really does have a large impact in the field.
Well, how about supports too? So what are we looking? I think there's a trend here, and I'll point out the trend in a second. But how about the supports? What do you see works really well with Junker Queen?
Supports Mercy, Lucio, and Zen. I've seen her the best. Ana on certain maps is going to be really strong. I think there's definitely going to be maps that Ana just does not fit into, doesn't have the sightlines for her, but Lucio with his speed boost comboing with Junker Queen's speed boost is ridiculous. Mercy for that damage boost and the survivability that comes with Mercy. And then Zenyatta just being able to spam down any long sight lines and help out your backline as well. Just keeping any dive characters off of your snipers or your other support. Zenyatta's become very, very good at that. But
I'll
I
just
would say those three are probably my top picks for playing with Junker Queen.
I'll just point out, while you can see this trend, is that it's really heroes that don't need shields, right? It's really heroes that don't need to stand behind something and try and get picks. So Widowmaker, a Hanzo, even Lucio, right? Tracer, Sombra, like these are very independent characters that don't hang. Like you, it's really hard to run something like a Cassidy with Junker Queen, just because the amount of damage that Cassidy takes. Especially if the enemy team has snipers, because then he can't even push out any corners at all. He's just going to be stuck to spamming the front line, which barely works in many cases, or on a big flank, which then you might as well go somebody else. How about her ultimate though? Is there anything big that combos with her ultimate that you're watching for? Obviously, things like Mercy damage boost is one big thing that we've done quite a few times when we've been playing. Are there any
Yeah,
other? Go ahead.
the Ash Dynamite there does a lot of damage, having everyone antied and they're getting that double tick damage. But also Genji Blade, Sojourn's ultimate with the railgun. Dragon I wouldn't say as much, but even a Bastion just going into his turret form through a Junker Queen ult can really burst everything down super fast.
Like something I've noticed, especially with the bleed tick damage, is as long as I've set my ultimate up properly, I'm gonna win the fight. It's one of those like game winning fights or game winning abilities or fight winning abilities. Sorry, because like it has so much utility in it and can shut down unbelievable crazy amounts of alt. Well, the big one is Zenyatta alt. You've been playing a lot of Zen. Have you had any experience with the Junker Queen coming in on that? I've been the Junker Queen on the enemy team, that's for sure.
Um, I've already been thinking about that playing, and I'm usually playing around her ultimate, as you would normally hold your transfer blade, but now I'm looking to hold that for her ultimate towards the end of it. If my team's still alive, I can burst heal them back up to full and we can re-engage the fight. But other than that, I'm looking for the fights that she doesn't have it to really confirm we are winning this. We can walk onto them and do whatever we want.
That's definitely, it does seem easy to counter. If you know she has it, positioning so that she doesn't hit you is really, really easy. I did have one experience that gets me a little bit on, oh my gosh, I should have the names of these down already, but on the push, or sorry, not push map, on the payload map, with the race car and whatever, there's a bridge on the very first point there. She went underneath it with her ult, and I got hit when I was standing on top of it, which makes me feel a little bit weird. And I hope they fix something like that as quickly as possible, and hopefully, or at least hopefully, it doesn't come up that often, because I was very clearly around a wall, or at least around a floor that was in between me and her. Um, that being said, overall, she doesn't feel that powerful. I'll point that out. How do you have the same opinion as me? I feel like she might go the way of Roadhog.
Yeah, yes and no. I would say closer to a Doomfist than Roadhog.
Okay, I can understand.
She's very aggressive, you want to be in the back, but when you put her up against some of these other tanks with Reinhardt, Sigma, or Zarya, I've seen Zarya's do work, or even Ball, with his disruptive play style, it really throws whoever's on Junker Queen off of their game. Either dealing with shields, where the enemy team has free safety behind whatever shield is there, or with Ball just ruining her movement and keeping her distracted or her team distracted where she can't make those plays. Junker Queen is definitely not a character for finishing off targets. She can put out a lot of damage, and then your DPS and your supports have to come in and clean up kills.
Well, she does seem like super vulnerable against shields, that's for sure. Um, and maybe it's just a playstyle thing. We'll have to learn, watch some of the best players in the world, and see how they deal with shields. But I feel like when you're running something like Roadhog, because all the enemy team has to do is block that hook, you're pretty much home free to do whatever you want. And like nobody is seriously looking at Roadhog as a main tank, correct?
I don't believe so. At where his current state is, he's too vulnerable. Everyone knows how to play around him and how to kill a Roadhog with relative ease, especially when he doesn't have that other supporting tank to go along with him. That I don't think he has much of a chance. D.Va's kind of looking along the same lines there too of she is an off tank and designed as an off tank, so she doesn't really fit too well in these matchups with other tanks.
Like I'm not gonna lie, I feel like Junker Queen is an off tank. It's something that it's been like a suspicion of mine since she first came out, where I was like, okay, you can't really get any better than shields in many cases. A shield with a Widowmaker is like an easy win in any game. Um, so running no shields is like no shields with anything else is like it's a little bit rough. So when I'm playing her, I'm always thinking like, okay, well, man, if I had like a Reinhardt in front of me, this might be a little bit easier. Because as soon as they run Reinhardt, we just get a run over. As long as the team's working together, that's for sure. Um, just on the topic of other tanks, is there anything that's really standing out? Because Orisa is like C tier right now, it seems. Is there anybody else that's really standing out to you as either a solo queue carry hero or as an Overwatch League carry hero?
Yeah, for looking more at like the Overwatch League side of stuff, Ball is very, very strong. I know Reinhardt with that Brawl comp is still a very good pick. And even looking into like Doomfist and Sigma, they're very strong at those high levels where your team can really play around and coordinate with extreme effectiveness. But looking at the solo carries, Reinhardt and Sigma are gonna be up there. I think Junker Queen is gonna be pretty decent for solo carries. I think the biggest thing would be I have to disagree with you on the Orisa.
Oh,
I
really?
think
Okay.
I think with how her kit is set up, she is very powerful.
Sleeper?
It's just it's just going to be a matter of time until people can really learn how to abuse that to the best ability, and we're going to see a lot of Orisa in the future.
Okay, because technically I wouldn't say she has a shield, but she has a shield-like ability, right? That like blocks everything and pushes forward, and so she does have that like tankiness. Okay, so maybe C tier in like the fact that just nobody likes playing her right now. Um, but as an early adopter of Orisa back in the day when her shield was small, and I still found a lot of use in her. I can see that. If you think that, I'll give that little bit of leeway, but I don't know again how she's gonna work with things like Reinhardt or even Sigma right now. I'm playing a lot of Sigma, and he's another one of those characters where I never feel useless unless I'm actually being useless. But we haven't seen too much of him on the field. Have you seen any? What have you been playing against other than Junker Queen? Because I've only been playing up against Junker Queen and like the occasional Winston, I guess.
I've played against a lot of Winston, Zarya, a couple of Rissas, Reinhardts. I haven't seen any Diva and very little Doomfist. And other than that, I think I've really played up against everything at this point, besides the Diva. And most of these characters are absolutely destroying Junker Queens.
Yes.
Because she just doesn't stack up in that burst damage aspect where these other tanks are really good at sustaining themselves, either with high mobility or with looking at Reinhardt and Orisa, just their absolute tankiness on the battlefield. They're a force to be reckoned with that you can't not respect.
They're mini bosses in themselves.
Yeah.
Whereas Junker Queen just feels like a harder and like an enemy type. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it does feel like picking Junker Queen is like in the good old days of open queue, when it would be like 4 DPS, someone would pick support, it would be Vincent, like Zenyatta's the DPS now too, and then there's the last person waiting, and then it's like, come on, pick a tank, and then they they pick a DPS. That's what it feels like picking Junker Queen a lot of the times. But it works. I can make her work, but yeah. So I think our consensus is very good, very fun, correct, but a lot of big flaws.
Yeah, I could agree with that. She's, from what I've seen and all my friends that play tank that have been playing her almost non-stop, they're having a blast. But when the fights get serious, they immediately swap to Sigma or Reinhardt or Zarya, and then we can just roll the enemy team.
It's just like a free win. Like, as long as everybody's working together, which is always the asterisk in every game. Yeah, a proper shield just seems to win it all. Now, of course, as usual, we've kind of left out DPS because the DPS right now seem fairly interchangeable, don't they? There's like, I will mention one hero in a moment, but is there any DPS that stand out to you? Because of course we're dealing with Sojourn, and I'm not gonna lie, I just feels like another soldier on the field.
Yeah, I'd wager to agree with you on that. Sojourn is very similar to Soldier. I think she has a lot of finishing capability with that railgun being high damage for hit scan. But I'd say the two heroes that stand out the most to me right now are Genji
Yes.
and Symmetra.
Symmetra. Okay. Let's hear about Genji. Let's talk about Genji first. Have they changed Genji at all?
I don't believe so.
They have not. Exactly. I don't believe so either. I've not seen any Genji changes in the patch notes. But why is he so powerful?
There's just innately, with one less tank, one of the roles of your off tank has always been to help peel for your backline. And only having one tank now, it has really turned into your backline has to be able to fend for itself. They have to be able to take that fight and win. And good Genjis, when I come across them, it's immediately GG go next. Because our team can't deal with this one character with that high mobility that he has to be able to pin him down and finish him.
Like, think about this. Okay, this is where I see a bit of the problem with Genji. And I loved Genji when I jumped into Overwatch 2. We don't have, what's it called, career profile, so I can't show it. But I probably played more Genji than I have tank right now because it's just easier to get DPS. But, like, he is so powerful because he has mobility, right? He has almost one-shot damage. He's got combo kill potential. He's got infinite tanking for a few seconds. Literally infinite tanking. You can stand there with your reflect up, and maybe the Junker Queen's bugged hammer might hit you, or I guess her knife is supposed to hit you anyways. But anything else touches you, and you are perfectly safe. And then you can just wall run out of that area and try again a few seconds later. He is incredibly powerful. If you put him in any other FPS game, I think it would be disgustingly overpowered. Not to take up too much space here, but like you're correct about how the backline has to win, and Genji will come in and just destroy the whole backline. A good Genji knows how to exploit that, and if they can't win, GG go next. Is there any fixes you think? Anything we can do about this madman ninja that's destroying our games or making our games just so much fun, which I love to play him?
Well, the biggest thing for him is they took away the stuns from your DPS and your supports. So the only real way to beat Genji now is to use those other CCs with the Zenyatta kick, Lucio's boop, Briggs whip shot to really get him out of your team where you can stop him for a second and kill him. Other than that, you always have Ana Sleep, which is the last hard CC outside of the tanks. I think it is still the biggest CC in the game.
Removing Cassidy's flashbang, I think was that probably that moment that Genji became incredibly powerful, because Genji couldn't do anything if he reflected a flashbang. But now if he reflects one of those grenades, whatever sticky grenades that he throws, immediately Genji's doing something. Genji has answers to everything. Everything that used to completely counter him. Brig, for example, if you hop in, if Brig shield bashes you, well, yeah, you take a bit of damage, but hopefully you get some healing because your supports are there, your tanks are around. Maybe you get that extra bit of health because your Junker Queen just gave you free health for no reason, and you just try again on the Brig. Like she's gonna stand there. She's gonna drop her shield to start fighting you. Once as soon as she drops her shield, you right click and then she's dead. So I don't think Genji needs a nerf. I think maybe everything else needs a buff.
We either need to see a few more stuns come back into the game. Not even a hard stun like the flashbang was, but even just a cancel. To cancel his deflect or his dash, or even a wall climb, where he can, like you said, come in and out of the fight for free almost. If there were a few more cancels, that would really bring him down a notch.
That's where Sombra can kind of come in, but more Sombra stuff.
But that's kind of where I also say Symmetra as that second DPS that's really strong.
So why? Some people say they killed her, they destroyed her, they nerfed her. What do we do? Well, why is she being played quite a bit still?
I haven't seen her played too much.
I've seen her played a little bit, but go ahead.
But I have seen enough. Her turret placement has become everything. And I think you play them very defensively for your backline. Because characters like Genji, Tracer, who want to get to your backline and wreak havoc, those turrets shut them down. They either have to focus the turrets or focus a kill. And if they don't pick the turrets, they're going to die to that turret.
Well, she takes so many roles right now, too, especially with the teleporter, a little bit quicker.
Yep.
There's times where I've had a Symmetra on my team, and I'm like, ooh, this feels a little bit more paced. Sometimes the Symmetra's terrible, and it's like, why are we even playing this? But when you get a good one on your team, it's low-key, pretty decent.
Yeah. And getting into that with her teleporter And even her new right clicks, they're strong. Teleporter can move an entire team across an entire choke point for free.
And they halved the duration of its whatever its execution, whatever it's called. It went from 2 seconds to 1 second to place it. So that's actually a huge buff.
And then on top of that, just her normal primary fire with that beam, that's still strong. I don't think it'll ever not be strong when you get that charged up and you can burn through any character with ease.
The lack of a second tank means the high charge Symmetra is very scary.
Deadly. I think
Okay.
that's about the fastest way to end a fight right there, to be completely honest.
I do also feel like Ashe is really powerful. So I'm just gonna pull it off a little bit from Symmetra, but I feel like Ashe is also reasonably powerful in many cases because like the ability to burn an entire team and then kind of be both the sniper and the anti-flanker at the same time takes over that role that Cassidy used to take over. What are your thoughts on that? I don't know. We haven't seen much Ashe around, but um, I've been enjoying it.
Yeah, I think she's gonna be one of those DPS that we have to keep an eye on and really see where she stacks up against the Genji, Sojourns, Sombras that can really come in and pick your team apart, Tracer even. And if she is able to keep them at bay, I think you've won the game.
Like she one taps Tracer. She has a CC ability to keep people away. For Sojourn, of course, Sojourn has to charge her shot up, but it's also relatively easy to keep yourself out of your way and tap her a few times if you got a Mercy who's really powerful. So I'm just making a suggestion. I know I haven't seen too much of her. Most people aren't playing her, but I'm noticing it. I'm feeling very powerful playing some Ashe.
I'm interested to see some more. Most definitely. I think the one of the other big DPS that I think might be a sleeper pick is that Bastion.
He's weird, isn't he?
He is weird, and I haven't figured him out yet.
I don't,
But
th- I don't think anybody has, and they're still playing Bastion playstyle. Old Bastion.
yes. But with his slower firing rate, those shots do a lot of damage. So when you are accurate with them, they have very good pick potential. And his right click, while one, it's a movement ability for you, you can jump up, kind of like a Junkrat mine, and jump up onto high grounds and be able to get into off angles to flank from. And then all you have to do at that point is you go into your turret form where you can move now. And you just rain down bullets on whoever is in your line of sight for the next 5 seconds before it's over. And you go back to shooting heads.
Well, you used to play a ton of Bastion, didn't you? You were quite a Bastion one trick for a while.
Yeah,
So the changes, like good, bad, reasonable, no thoughts.
in the right hands, it's terrifying.
Yes.
In the wrong hands, you might as well have a Mei that sits the entire game in ice block.
That's the way it feels sometimes. He's sitting in the back doing nothing. And even worse, because like on the attackers or on the opposite side, it's really easy to do damage to him. I feel like especially since he moves around, it's almost easier to get to positions to corner him or just to pull him out with a CC of some sort. I know playing a lot of Junker Queen, hitting him with the knife and then pulling him out of position is free kill every time.
Yeah. And he lost that ability to self heal, which was one of the big things that kept Bastion as a real threat in the battlefield, is he can get himself out of the sticky situation with, say, a Junker Queen. But I think that's definitely one of those characters that I'm gonna have to feel out more, and I want to get to know them better, how to play them, how to abuse that play style. But it'll take time.
The listeners right now are just loving you. They're like, "Oh wow, I can't wait to see you on the battlefield. That just sounds absolutely wonderful."
Yeah, Bears, I'm coming for you.
Okay, well, we've gone over kind of all the heroes, not all the heroes, obviously, but the stuff that we really wanted to go over in terms of specific heroes and hero balance. The Is there anything you've noticed? I'm gonna bring up literally. Let's bring up push right away. In terms of playstyle, how are you feeling about that game mode?
I've I've seen a couple different play styles, and I think really with those push maps, it's all about aggression. You want to snowball, you want to keep that aggression constant. As soon as you stop your forward momentum, it's back to an even match. So it really comes down to winning that first fight and building up that momentum to snowball your way through the map. If you can't keep that up, it becomes a very close game.
It
I've
does. It does
I've had
seem.
a couple
Go ahead.
I had a couple games where both teams had pushed to the end, and we just kept trading back and forth over and over. Both teams were within 3 meters of victory on each side. But those games, with the added time that they added to it, they feel good. They're exciting. They're Every time you get back onto their side, you're taking new angles that they have to look at. You're splitting their team up, and with all of the different flank routes on those maps, it keeps the game interesting over a long enough time to have a good even game.
Like I am worried, and I'm worried about a lot. I'll point out with a lot of this kind of stuff, that it will end up feeling like 2CP. I feel like if the teams are a little bit out of balance, then it is a full steamroll one way or another, which is good because the game ends quick. We all like that. And at least two in comparison to 2CP, where you end up 6-6 and you're fighting over the last little tick, and like it feels terrible. At least when things are balanced, it's fun, right? At least when we're going back and forth, it's an absolute blast trying to set yourself up for every single team fight. I'm excited. It's a better change. So, in your mind, is it a good change from Overwatch's 2CP? Did we make the right choice and trade out garbage for gold, or do we have garbage and have less garbage now?
I don't think it's perfect. I think, like you said, there's going to be a lot of back and forth, and when you have a team that's just definitively better, it's a fast game. It's over quick because they can just run over anyone and there's no chance. I was playing earlier with Nate Shot, and we played 2 games with him, the stack that I was, and then he was playing with a duo. So we kept going up against these 5 stacks, and the first game, it was a long game. We played it out, but then that next game it was New Queen Street, and it went by so fast.
Yes.
Like, there was, I think the enemy team won 1 fight the entire time, and that was when they put 5 ultimates into us, and then we came back without any ultimates and just absolutely steamrolled them. Keep in mind, that's with a top 500 player, but when you get into those situations where one team is just definitively better, I think we're always going to see that. I do say, for it being the better alternative, it 100% fits that role where we can't have an endless game.
Yeah, it doesn't have the same kind of balance that, let's say, Payload does, where even one team is like not as skilled. Very rarely does everybody get like held first point. It's so rare that happens. But it seems like not so rare that on push, somebody doesn't even push the bot just a few meters on one side, and the other team just rolls right through them with no resistance. So it'll be good. I do think we're gonna see a lot of the same complaints. It's just the way people are. I think it's the way the game mode is. Once we start playing this game over and over again for years, hopefully we don't have to do it over again for years. Hopefully there's more content. We are gonna be a little bit bored of them and see the flaws. I will point out with the actual game design itself, there's a lot of corners. There's a lot of flank routes. Good, bad. What do you think? I think it's okay. I don't think it's the best game design ever, but I don't think the map is absolutely terrible. What are your thoughts about all of the different flank routes we're seeing on these maps?
I think it really brings out those flank heroes like Sombra, Tracer, Genji, even a Reaper or a Pharah that get behind you through one of those weird flanks can do a lot of damage to a team, and it really turns the game into not a full 360, but you have to be able to keep track of so much more of the battlefield and really play as a team and control the space that you have to, specifically to move that cart. And it's very easy, I've noticed, for people to, with these maps, start chasing kills and splitting up, even when your team is definitively better. So it does force having that good team cohesion and play style that Overwatch is known for. You get punished very quickly when your team splits up, and people can get bursted down when they're on their own. And I think that's going to be the biggest thing that keeps this relevant. And it's going to be a while until people really figure out how to play it. I don't 100% know myself. I'm just speculating, but I think going through, you're gonna have a lot of fights where your team is on a 360 swivel, trying to catch people behind and in front coming through these different flanks. And it's gonna make team fights a lot more difficult to analyze and break down.
But I think in the end, it still feels like Overwatch, right? Like we haven't lost the original game,
Oh, not at all.
and
Just,
potentially might even be better, which I don't mind again because we've done so many scraps over the years. Even if when it's 3v3 competitive, 2v2 competitive, it still feels like Overwatch.
yeah. And as long as they keep it to that feeling, I think we'll be fine.
Exactly. I like there was a lot of fear. I was a little bit scared. Um, I do think they have ruined Overwatch. Overwatch is dead. Long live Overwatch. Um, like the original game that we used to play may be gone, and we may see it in some custom game modes. We may have a little bit of fun with it later and during scraps and stuff like that. We may even see some pros put together something for which they always end up doing something like that, and we may see an Overwatch classic in 10 years from now, which would be interesting. So I do think it's no longer the same game we used to play, especially for competitive, but it's just as good of an Overwatch so far as we would hope.
Yeah, and if they had kept it the same game all these years, there wouldn't be any players left.
That's true.
You have to keep updating these games. Any game like this needs updated and balance patches to change things up. While a lot of the higher tier players really love dive, even the dive that we knew in the original release of Overwatch is gone. With new support characters that help more and new DPS that can really get in and mess stuff up on the dive. what we once knew as dive comp, you'll never see that composition again.
which is a good thing, I think. It was the game was probably more chaotic than we expected back then, or we even knew back then. I think if we took the best players nowadays and brought them into the old Overwatch days, we'd have 100 times more complaints.
And if we even brought in plat players with the skill that they have now into the original Overwatch,
Yep.
we would be looking at hundreds of people in Grandmaster.
Yes. The game has changed a lot.
And people have really put in the time to fine tune and hone those skills that are required for the game, and we can't we can't go back in time at this point to go back to that old version of the game because people know better.
I don't miss it.
They,
I'm glad.
I don't. It was fun while it lasted, but
Yeah.
we're on to new and better things.
All right. Well, is there anything else within the PvP world that you think you want to chat about here? Anything that stood out to you that we didn't go over? Um, I brought up everything I think that is the most important to me. I do want to. We can talk at some other point in time about. I want to talk a little about Sojourn a bit more because she seems like a low key something that was slipping into the game and doesn't feel super impactful, but maybe super impactful. So some other time we can chat about that. But is there anything else that's standing out to you that's super important?
Not really at the moment. Gotta play some more, see some more news come out, and we can go from there on the next one.
We're definitely excited for the new support. I will, as usual, too. We'll just quickly talk about the PVE stuff or the co-op stuff. I haven't seen any news. Does that worry you?
Not really.
No.
We did get one piece of news.
Oh, did I miss something, or maybe I saw it and it just kind of slipped by me?
Their plan for releases for Overwatch 2 is every season we get a new hero or new map.
Well,
Right.
yes. Ah, yes.
And then 2023, start of the new year, is going to be the release of PvE.
Ah, yes. The dates. I forgot about that. Of course, dates are always useful.
We have a date. We don't know what it's going to be yet. I think the only information we really have is from those really early snapshots of it that they gave us back when they announced Overwatch 2. So
And
we haven't seen much, but it's still in the works and they're fine-tuning the PvP, and then I'm hoping they put a lot of energy into that PvE and make it something unique and fun that other games haven't done before.
I want it to be a AAA game. I really, 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 really freaking hope that it is a AAA game. I don't want some silly, I don't know, campaign. Like if it's anything like their little events, like the oh my god, like the Retribution event and whatnot, I am not interested. Those were I'm not gonna they were like 4 out of 10 for me. Uh, I do hope they go. I've seen played, especially having played Elden Ring recently. My expectations for single players and things like that have gone way not single players, co-op even has gone way up. Are you worried at all, or do you think that they're going to be? I obviously it's kind of an open question here, but are you confident that they're going to be making a AAA game for us?
I don't think it's gonna be what you expect. If you've ever done Man vs. Machine in TF2, I would be willing to put money down that that's what we're gonna kinda be looking at. Where you have waves of bots that come in, maybe as you progress through the map, and you have to fight them off. But I'm hoping that these games, the co-op games, they take a lot of time and a lot of focus and energy getting into like playing them on difficult settings. And I'm interested to really see what the changes they do to the heroes are and how you can get different upgrades. I know we saw in the latest um, release from Overwatch that Reinhardt was jumping off of
Yes.
the middle point of Busan downtown and slamming in a full 360 directional earth shatter. So I'm
Destroying a
really
bunch of
interested.
enemies in the way. Yeah, it was pretty
Yeah,
cool looking at it.
I want to see a lot of unique and interesting things coming out of these heroes that, who knows, smaller, well tweaked offshoots might become a part of their kit in the future.
Well, I
Bring back
guess
the Mercy 6-man res.
yeah. Well, of course, 4 player, yeah, you could bring up the full team res. That'd be pretty awesome. I think those upgrade abilities, in just terms of pure fun, I hope it's just fun. That's what I hope. I don't want grindy, silly, things that you gotta do over and over and over again. They're just difficult for the sake of difficult. I would like them to be fun. So, fingers crossed on that.
Yeah, and really, time will tell. As we get closer, I'm sure we'll see more about it and more of what's coming, and we can get hyped and excited about it at that point.
All right. Well, I think we've gone over the large suite of our excitement for Overwatch 2, our experience with playing the Overwatch 2 beta, our ins and outs analysis of the different heroes and metas and the things that we kind of see in the future. Wild. If there was one thing that you could tell Blizzard right now, one little update that you want to give to a developer, what advice slash information would you give them?
Fix Ana.
Fix on. Do something, anything.
It's just going to be tricky getting into how fast paced these games are. With Ana, her kit is so good, but the momentum of the game just doesn't allow her to use it as well anymore.
Definitely something has to slightly change. I do hope that when we start seeing a more variety or bigger variety of tanks being played, that she will slowly sneak her way back in. There may be some comps that she fits really well in, or I'm even up to more damage, just or a bigger or less cooldown on the sleep or something like that, or something for her to be a little bit more aggressive in the fights. And I think Ana would be a perfect playstyle because you have to balance it. It would be just a perfect balance between damage and healing. Whereas Zen is like more damage than healing in many cases. So somewhere around there, I think Ana would be absolutely perfect. All right. Well, that being said, I think we're gonna wrap this up here. Of course, guys, if you liked what you heard, patreon.com/scrubclub. I have some new goals that we have set up for different days and whatnot. Go check it out there if you guys are interested, like we're doing. Even $1 a month helps. Thank you very much. Of course, scrub-club.ca for more information. Wildking, do you have any socials that you would like to tell the people about?
I am not a person on social media.
Well, you have a project. If you want to give your project out to just the few listeners that we have.
Yeah, I've been working on some D&D campaigns with some buddies at twitch.tv/arcanacheck that we've been having fun getting into the campaign a little deeper, starting to level up, and we have a lot of fun over there. Do a lot of
Yes.
gaming, a lot of community stuff.
So definitely, Wild's trying to get it off the ground. If you're interested, check him out. He does have a Patreon too. Haha, I'm the only Patreon member right now. We got to get more than Wild. We'll get on it. Um, This is probably not the time to grill him about it on a on a, on a podcast, but we'll get there. Anyways, guys, check him out. Follow, like, subscribe, the whole thing, and we will see you guys later. Wild, thank you so much for coming out and talking. The information has been great, and your understanding of Overwatch, or at least your understanding of, or your commitment to Overwatch, definitely adds a lot to the show, the cast. And yeah, I see you guys later. I love you all, and GG's.